Welcome. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 6 o'clock. I like to start on time. Welcome to the Healing Power of Plant Foods cooking class. I'm April Ashcroft, and in the kitchen with me tonight is Jan. She's going to help me out greatly. Who's been here before? Okay, so a few of you. We've got some newbies. That's good. That's good. I'm excited to have you here tonight. I've got some yummy food to make for you and some great information to give to you about the healing power in plant foods. They really are miraculous in that they boost your immune system and protect you from disease, all types of diseases. It can help reverse disease if you have it, help to protect you from getting it, and best of all, it helps to achieve and maintain your ideal weight. And at this time, when we're going through the whole coronavirus thing, it's one of the best things, and nobody's talking about it, of course. They're talking about everything else but nutrition. And that is the number one most important thing that we can do to protect ourselves, not from getting the virus necessarily, but for having the virus get into our body and wreak havoc and make us sick. We can be one of those who are don't have any, who are asymptomatic, that don't have any symptoms. If we've got a really strong immune system, our immune system comes in and sees that foreign invader and knocks it out and gets rid of it. But your immune system is fed by food, and we need to be eating the right foods. So I'm going to be talking to you about that tonight, along with preparing some yummy food that I hope you'll love. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about myself. I come from a standard American family, eating pretty much the standard American diet, and watched my family members get the standard American diseases. Both my parents died of cancer. They had heart disease, diabetes, kidney failure, no autoimmune issues, but strokes. Both my grandparents had strokes. And as I was growing up and witnessing all of this, I decided a long time ago that there was something that I could do about it to make sure that I didn't fall to this genetic predisposition, so to speak. But over the years, I've come to learn that genetics plays only 5% of your risk of getting disease, and the rest of it is lifestyle. My favorite nutrition expert, registered dietitian Brenda Davis, she says, genetics is the loaded gun, and diet and lifestyle pull the trigger. And so we can't, as much as we want to blame it on our genetics, we have control. With every meal that we eat, we can take control and choose foods that will help to protect us from those diseases. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I am all about desserts, and I'm going to get those going tonight. I'm going to do a little muffin bite, I'm going to call it tonight, because we're going to make small ones so you can all have one. But I firmly believe that a good, healthy diet deserves some good, healthy treats, and I'm going to show you how to make those. And we all love treats, right? Love desserts. So, and I want to make these first because so I can get them in the oven and they can be cooled a little bit before you eat them. So we're going to do a pumpkin chocolate chip muffin. In fact, we're doing lots of squash tonight. We're doing spaghetti squash, and we're doing some butternut squash, and we're doing some pumpkin. So you'll get lots of winter squash in. I love cooking seasonally. I feel like foods are provided in the seasons that we need to be eating them. Just like tomatoes are grown best in the hottest part of the summer, and they protect your skin from DNA damage. I think that's really amazing that foods grow the time of year that we need them. So, okay, so we're going to do, like I said, a pumpkin chocolate chip muffin. And when you're making a cake or a cookie, you have some basic ingredients. We've got flour, we've got a fat, and we've got sugar. That's the main basic components of your dessert, your cake or your cookie or whatever. By the way, do you all have recipes? Because the recipes are up here with the rest of the handouts. So if you didn't get one, go ahead and feel free to get up and grab you one. So we're going to start off with some flour, but I'm going to make that flour with oats. And oats and millet, actually. This is a cup of rolled oats. So I'm just going to add those, and they are gluten-free in case anybody cares. In fact, everything tonight is gluten-free. And then I'm going to add some millet, ground millet. And this is 1/3 a cup of millet ground, and I just ground it in my coffee grinder. You can also grind it if you've got a strong blender. If you don't have a coffee grinder, I recommend getting them. They're not that expensive, and they're great for grinding nuts and seeds and grains if you need to. And millet, is everybody familiar with millet? It's kind of like quinoa. It looks like quinoa. It's a little teeny tiny grain. It's actually one of the main ingredients in birdseed. But it's super high in minerals. It's high in protein. It's high in fiber. It's really, really good for you. Whole grains are really good for you. And it's actually best to eat your grains whole, intact, not ground like this. But this is dessert, so we have to compromise a little bit. So we're going to use this is a third a cup of whole millet that's been ground. So it's a little bit, probably measures out a little bit more maybe after it's ground. So we're just going to add that here to our food processor. And you will need to have a food processor, or even, you might even be able to do it in a blender, but you'd have to do things in sections with that. So, and then we're going to put in some nuts. I've got a half a cup of pecans that I'm putting in. You can use walnuts as well. And these are your fats, and I'm using whole food fats. All the parts of the plant are there. Nothing's been taken away, nothing's been added. It's just all whole food goodness. They haven't been roasted or salted or anything. They're just raw. It's the best way to eat your nuts. In fact, when you roast nuts or seeds, you lose some of the amino acids, the proteins, and you make them more carcinogenic. It's better to eat them raw. So we'll just go ahead and add those. And then I'm going to add my favorite sugar or sweetener, which is dates. Again, dates are a whole food. All the parts of the plant are still there, although you want to make sure those pits are out. I buy pitted dates, but I always check them because sometimes there's still some pits in there. And I buy a big tub of them at Costco, and they're a pretty decent price. So I'm just going to add those. Take those. And let's see, we're going to go ahead and just process this for a second. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and add, let's see, I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. Now, I usually don't use any sugar at all. My sweetener is the dates pretty much, but once in a while to kick up the sweetener, because sometimes when you're making something cakey, it's with all the heavy ingredients, it's hard to get it sweet enough without making it too heavy. So this is a Halloween treat. I'm considering it a Halloween treat. I want to please my grandkids. So I want to kick up the sweet just a little bit more. So I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of dark brown sugar. And this is like a turbinado sugar. It's like a healthier sugar. It still has the molasses in it, which is where molasses comes from, is the whole sugar cane. And this is how you want to use processed sugars. Just a little bit here and there to kick up the sweetener. I'll use maple syrup to give it a maple flavor. I'll use some molasses to give it a little molassesy flavor when I'm doing a gingerbread cookie or something. But I like to stick to pretty much whole food sweeteners. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my pumpkin. And this is a cup and a half of pumpkin. This is just canned pumpkin. And I'm a real purist. And I don't hardly ever buy things in cans or containers, but when I can find a product that's very clean, and pumpkin is one of them. You look on the side of the pumpkin can in the ingredient list, which I hope you all do when you're buying something in a package, and the only thing in it is pumpkin. And so I will buy that just to save time cooking a pumpkin and preparing it for a cookie or whatever. And then we're going to put in some seasonings here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and grind this down real quick. Sometimes when you put in the powdery stuff on top, it poofs all over the place. Okay, then I'm going to put in my spices. I've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of ginger, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and that's it. And to help that those baking soda, baking powder kind of help it to rise a little bit in the cookie or in the muffin, I'm going to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, about a tablespoon. And you can add any kind of vinegar. And we've got a teaspoon of vanilla. This is a super easy way to make cookies. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 te Just a one pot deal right here. Now I kind of like to leave a little bit of texture with these, a little bit of the oat texture rather than grinding it clear down to where it'd be like flour. But you can just kind of do it the way you like it. And then we're going to throw in some chocolate chips. And I've just got 1/3 cup of chocolate chips. And they are non-dairy, by the way. A lot of times I like to get the little chocolate chips because they get dispersed throughout the muffin a little bit better. But if I grind it a little bit, it breaks them up and gets them out. Because we're only putting 1/3 cup. And you can put more if you want, but I want to, keep the sugar content down. Okay. And that is it. I'm going to take my cookie scoop, and I'll just do a few of these. And I'm just going to do, we just got these little muffin things right here. And did you know you don't have to put muffin cups in a muffin tin? So my muffin tin was only 12, and we needed more than that. So I'm just going to do a scoop in each muffin tin, or muffin cup. And we'll just fill those up and put them in the oven. They'll bake 350 for, not sure. Let's see, 10 minutes. 15 to 17 minutes. You do those. By the way, if you have any questions, I welcome them. Don't be afraid to just speak up, or if you want to raise your hand, you can do that as well.
So if you use the muffin tin instead of the papers, do you need to spray it? Or?
You would need to put a little bit of something on them. Yeah, I think so, unless it's a Teflon nonstick. Yeah.
Do you have to spray the silicone?
The silicone you don't need to. I was tempted to use these, but my cookie scoop is a little bit bigger than these. So, and you know how I clean off the blade when you plug it in and spin it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't. But
Yeah, you just spin it and anyway. Okay, let's move on to the, let's see, we're going to do the Spaghetti Squash Garbanzo. And this is kind of a, I know probably most people who's had spaghetti squash with the tomato sauce on it. Everybody's pretty much done that. This is kind of just taking it to the next level. I like to make things real hearty and very filling, and whenever I had spaghetti squash with just a tomato sauce on top, I had to have some bread or something else with it because it was just a little bit not really substantial enough for me. So I came up with this, and I really love it. So I'm going to start off with cutting an onion. And this is just a regular yellow onion. And onions are have powerful anti-cancer compounds. They have organosulfur compounds. And you can hang out with this onion all day long and it's not going to bother you until you cut it open. And when you cut that baby open, the floodgates open, right? If it's a real strong onion, it starts to make you cry. Those are sulfur compounds, and those compounds are powerful against cancer. We want those to happen. Well, we don't really want to cry, but those compounds are really good. In a study with 10,000 or 10 European study, 10 country European study showed that those who ate the most onion had the least cancers of all types. So you want to get those onions in. And that accounts for that's all allium vegetables: onions, leeks, garlic, scallions. Those are all allium vegetables, and they all have that powerful effect. They have also anti-inflammatory properties. Oh, I'm going to use my chopper here. I almost forgot about it. You guys familiar with the Vidalia Chop Wizard? Those who've been in my class have probably gone and bought one because they see how great it is. It's my favorite kitchen tool next to the Vitamix. Super great for chopping vegetables, and I hope you're chopping lots of vegetables. They're the most powerful foods to reverse disease. Your mom was right. Eat your vegetables. In fact, make your vegetables the main part of your meal. My favorite nutrition expert, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he says to eat 2 pounds of vegetables a day. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? It's not too bad, actually. Vegetables make everything taste good. The key is mixing them into whatever it is you're making, kind of like what we're doing tonight. I need a wood spoon. Right here. Onions reduce risk of heart disease. They lower cholesterol. Ooh, that's a strong onion too. So I don't have any oil in the bottom of my pan, okay? Oil is not a healthy food. Even olive oil, even coconut oil, even any kind of oil. Oil is a processed food. It's a highly processed food. They've taken the whole food, the whole plant, the whole olive, and they've extracted the oil from it and left all the fiber and nutrients behind. The great thing about fiber in a whole food fat is it binds those fats to that fiber and it ends up in the toilet bowl and not right here, you know, where you don't want it, right? When you're eating extracted oils, it has no fiber to slow that absorption down. It knows right where to go, and it goes right where you don't want it to go. It's 120 calories per tablespoon, and it's pure 100% fat. It's the highest calorie, lowest nutrient food we consume. Dr. Esselstyn, he's the director of preventive cardiology at the Cleveland Clinic. He reverses heart disease in 98% of his patients. He has a 98% success rate. And he tells them absolutely no oil. He gets them off all nuts and seeds, avocados, all fats though, because they're on the list to have bypass surgery, and they choose not to do that. And they'll go to him, and he gets their arteries all cleaned out with just diet. Yes, that's possible. Who are they? I know. Yeah, I know. That's what you hear. And I don't want you to believe me. I want you to go and on your page there, down in the left-hand corner at the bottom, it says homework. Go home and watch some videos from Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. In fact, there's some right on the front page of my website, which is also on your handout, where he talks about olive oil, oil in general, and why it's so harmful. What it does is it coats the inner lining of your artery. I'm just going to chop up some garlic here while I'm talking. It coats the inner lining of your artery, and on the inner part of your arteries are endothelial cells, and those cells produce a gas called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide keeps your blood vessels like Teflon, so that food, you know, nutrients, whatever, your blood flows through there very easily, smoothly. It doesn't develop plaque. And that nitric oxide is greatly reduced when we eat a diet high in oil. In fact, right after a high oil, high fat meal, blood flow slows up to 40% within 4 hours of consumption. They've shown that with those tourniquet tests where they put the cuff on your arm after a McDonald's meal of hamburgers, blood flow way down, and then a meal high in oil, blood flow was way down. And then it starts to get better after about 4 hours. And then what do? We go and eat again and pour that olive oil on our salad. And there it goes again. And how do we overcome heart disease when we're doing that 3 times a day? I hear a lot of times, I'm doing everything right. I'm eating really healthy diet. I'm eating good fats. And I just can't get my cholesterol down. And I'm like, well, try to get rid of the olive oil and see what happens. My husband's cholesterol after being married for 10 years and eating a whole food plant-based diet, about 98%. His cholesterol was still about 260. And oh, that thing's going to burn my spoon. His cholesterol was about 260. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of water because it is starting to stick. And we went off oil after we heard Dr. Esselstyn speak. And he said, let's give it a try. So we did. In 6 weeks, he dropped his cholesterol 50 points. So I seriously just about burnt that thing. We almost had a fire. Okay. It's one thing about gas stoves. I'm not really used to gas stoves. I'm going to go ahead and put in these 3 cloves of garlic. And I don't know if you can see, but the bottom of my pan is kind of getting a little bit brown, and that's when I put the water in it. Just a little bit of water. A little bit of broth, whatever it is you want to use. I'm going to turn that down. I'm sauteing this over medium-high heat. And I just saute that garlic just for a minute or so. Garlic, again, it has those same compounds as well. And it affects all types of cancers. And this is October's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to call it Breast Cancer Prevention Month because we don't need it. We don't need it at all. No woman needs to get it. If they're eating a high nutrient diet full of onions, mushrooms. Speaking of mushrooms, we're going to go ahead and add some mushrooms. In fact, we're going to add about 2 cups of mushrooms. 1 button mushroom a day, and this is a button mushroom. 1 button mushroom a day showed in studies to decrease women's risk of breast cancer by 64%. 1 button mushroom a day. Mix that with green leafy vegetables, which is what we're going to do today. Bumps that up to 89%. Mix that with some flax seeds. Berries are another great anti-cancer food. Just all plant foods, a good plant-based diet. You got a recipe for cancer-free. Cancer-free for life. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more water to that. You want to just lower your mask for a second while you ask? Is that okay? Because I couldn't hear you. Yes, that is the one time when I would use a little bit of oil, is because I don't know what else to use. I'd like to not have to, but I would use a little bit. I mean, that little bit's not gonna hurt you. Yeah, I like using the little cups. They work good, but sometimes there has been those times when I haven't had anything, and I just, yeah, so. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to add, let's see, maybe I'll wait till those tomatoes get done a little bit more. I'm going to add some canned tomatoes. These are organic, and I've got on your recipe, I think, can of chopped tomatoes, and these are actually crushed. I like crushed better for a tomato paste, tomato sauce. I think I'm going to add a little bit more water to this and just put the lid on and let those mushrooms cook down. I want those mushrooms to cook down good. So while I am waiting for that to cook, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I'm going to do with this spaghetti squash. So how many of you tried to cut a whole winter squash raw? Anybody? Yeah? How many fingers did you lose when you cut that squash? Just about, right? I've come close a few times. So what I do is I stick this entire thing. I do nothing with it except I do wash it. I put it all in the oven, 375 for about an hour. Cook it till it's soft. Sometimes it'll cook a little bit. It won't cook all the same when you cook it this way. So you got to like rotate it, turn it over halfway between cooking. But it usually works really good that way. So, and then you can just cut it super easy. No fingers lost. And then just scoop out those seeds. One thing bad about doing it this way, though, you can't save your seeds and plant some more, but there's more where that came from, so. And then, Jan, can I get you to just scoop that out, and you can get a fork and just scoop that out and put it in the pan or spoon or whatever. Here, go ahead and take that. Oh, actually, I need one. And you don't want to get that spaghetti squash too mushy either. For this type of a dish, you want to keep it somewhat, keep some texture in there. All right, so like I said, when I've done just spaghetti squash with the sauce, I feel like I need a little bit more. In fact, I used to love to make garlic toast Toast the bread, put a little bit of olive oil on it, a little bit of garlic, and put the spaghetti squash on top, kind of like a pizza or something. And then I kind of got away from using bread and wasn't using the oil, so I wanted to do something that would kind of make it more substantial. And so I added some grain to it, and that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to add some millet, using lots of millet tonight. I just really like using millet in Italian style foods. I use it kind of in place of pasta. I know it has not similar to pasta at all, but it just works really nicely. And I like millet with spaghetti squash because the spaghetti squash is hearty and the millet grain is kind of hearty. Quinoa is very light and fluffy and it's great for salads. I prefer the millet. It's a little bit heavier. It's kind of more like rice. So I'm just going to go ahead and add, and I kind of, on your recipe, I put I think 1 medium spaghetti squash. Is that what I have on there? Or one? Do I put the size? I can't remember. Say medium spaghetti squash. And then I had you cook a cup of grain, and I just kind of, I kind of just guess on the amount of grain per squash, for the amount of squash, just however much you want to add. If you're going to add any, maybe you don't want to add any, but I highly recommend getting whole grains. Whole grains are really good for you. I know there's a lot of bad information out there from the paleo and keto people saying that grains are bad. They're bad for your gut. They're bad for your health. They're not bad. They're good for your gut. Your gut needs them. They are, in fact, if your guts, I'm feeling my mushrooms. Oh, they're doing good. In fact, if you've got any gut issues, good way to heal that is to eat more whole grains, and I mean whole intact, not flour, not bread, whole intact grains. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of guess on how much to add here. I'm going to turn that burner on and just get this warming because the spaghetti squash is cooled. And this just adds, the millet just adds a little bit more heartiness to it. I really, really like it. When we eat a low carbohydrate diet, free from too much, free from grains and beans and those kind of things, we're starving our gut microbiome, our gut bacteria. It feeds on fibers. It feeds on resistant starch, and resistant starch comes in grains and beans. Our digestive tract is lined with a mucus lining, and that mucus is made out of carbohydrates, and that's what your gut feeds on. And we want to feed them because that's what makes us healthy. And this looks like, I'm going to go ahead and just add all of that millet. And I don't really want to cook this anymore. I just want to keep it warm. So, Jan, if you want to just kind of keep an eye on it and stir that once in a while. Except I need my wood spoon. If you can find one. Okay, let's go back to our mushroom mixture, and those are getting nice and soft. A few other things about, I didn't talk about mushrooms very much. Mushrooms contain, they have angiogenesis inhibitors. Angiogenesis is when our body produces blood vessels to feed growth. When we're little, we have lots of angiogenesis going on because we're growing. When we get big, we don't have, angiogenesis isn't really going on unless we cut ourselves or pull a muscle or something, and then we're trying to feed that to make it grow and heal. When we've got a cancer cell in our body, angiogenesis is going on making that cell grow, and we want to cut off that growth stimulation process. And mushrooms are anti-angiogenic. They cut off blood supply to tumors. They contain 22 proteins that lower cholesterol and lower blood pressure at the same time. They function like probiotics. They're one of the best ways to feed your gut, along with those grains. Okay, so we're going to add some tomato to this. I'm going to add a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I'm just going to put a little water in here. I don't like to waste anything, so.
I always hear you say that in my mind.
Oh, another thing great about mushrooms is it blocks the breakdown of carbohydrates. So you're not getting as much of a blood sugar spike. And really, with whole grains, you don't get a blood sugar spike. You get blood sugar spike when you eat flour. But if you were to have some mushrooms with that bread, like on a pizza, non-dairy, meatless pizza, you would slow down the absorption of those carbohydrates from that bread. Okay. Oh, mushrooms also have aromatase inhibitors that keep estrogen levels low. Estrogen fuels the growth of breast cancer and prostate cancer. Those are both hormonally stimulated cancers, and mushrooms keep that estrogen low. Okay, to this I'm going to add some seasonings. I'm going to add some red pepper flakes and some Italian seasoning, just a combination Italian spice seasoning. I think there's some oregano and basil and lots of yummy things, and it smells so good. And then we're going to add some spinach. And I'm going to add about 8 ounces of spinach to this. Leafy green vegetables are the healthiest foods on the planet. We need to be eating lots of them every day. In fact, like I said, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he says 2 pounds of vegetables. He says make 1 pound greens, cooked and raw. When you cook things, you make some nutrients more bioavailable. When you eat something raw, you're getting something from that raw that you may have missed out when you cooked. So I heard a quote from somebody, I can't think, raw food has what cooked food doesn't, and cooked food has what raw food doesn't. So you want to get a combination. Leafy green vegetables have folate, one of the best sources of folate. Doctors tell expectant mothers, to take a folate pill, folic acid pill. Folate is in green leafy vegetables. If you're eating lots of green leafy vegetables, you don't need to take folic acid, which, by the way, increases risk of cancer. Folic acid increases risk of cancer, liver cancer. And folate from green vegetables decreases risk of cancer. We want to get our nutrients from whole foods, and we don't eat nearly enough green leafy vegetables. They're high in calcium. Where does the cow get her calcium? She doesn't get it from a glass of milk every day. She gets it from eating leafy green vegetables. Best source of calcium on the planet. They're high in vitamin K, protein, spinach. Popeye knew what he was doing when he was eating his spinach. And he had big muscles. I know Popeye's not real, though. And I need a bigger pan, but that's okay. It'll cook down. Spinach, that's the great thing about spinach is it cooks down. Oh, leafy greens, I talked about nitric oxide, those cells in your blood vessels that produce nitric oxide. The food that stimulates nitric oxide production is green leafy vegetables. They're the most powerful vasodilator, meaning your body produces that nitric oxide, which keeps your blood vessels, makes them so that they expand. They're flexible, they expand for when you're going out for your run or you're out on your hike and your heart's beating fast and you need more blood flow to your heart and your arteries expand. Makes them so they can expand easier, that nitric oxide. Green leafy vegetables feed that. Green leafy vegetables also feed your immune system. If you're not eating greens, your immune system is lacking, is suffering. But when you're putting green leafies in stuff like this, it makes them taste good. And when that spinach gets cooked down, it's not going to look like quite as much. So we'll put the lid on that and just cook that down. How's that coming? Is it warm? Warming up? Okay. We'll just.
I did turn it down.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's see. We want to do. Do you want to find a lid for that? Well, actually, we'll just use that one right there.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do our butternut squash soup. So I'm going to move that pan right there. So we're going to do another onion. This is a butternut bisque. It's more of a bisque than, I guess, a soup, but either way, it's good. So this onion right here is a sweet onion. And I want to go sweet with this recipe. We don't want it too sweet. We don't want it dessert sweet, but I wanted a sweeter onion for this. Somebody have a question?
Yeah, how do you know it's a sweet onion?
Because the sign said sweet onion at the grocery store. I went in there looking for a sweet onion, and I was looking all over, and there it was. It just said sweet onion. So I was like, okay. I know those, what are those onions that are so popular? It starts with a W. Anybody? Walla Walla. Yeah, aren't those supposed to be sweet onions? Seems like I see them in the store like a certain time of year. Okay. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and chop that again with our chopper. And to be honest, I've never compared side by side, like eating it raw, like to see what they taste like, what the difference is. Oh, wrong one. You might be able to, well, I just don't want it to, I don't want it to get, it's the Vidalia Chop Wizard. Turn it on as low as you can. I don't want it to get too mushy. Oh, maybe I'll leave that here for trash. I'm done with that chopper. Okay. Oh, actually, I'm not. Sorry. Thought I was done. I am done with that screen. So the chopper, by the way, has a larger screen, like a 1/2 inch, and then it's got this 1/4 inch square, which I'm using for the apple. So you can go ahead and take that. Now this is a sweet apple, not a tart apple, although you could do tart if you wanted. This is going in the soup, by the way. This is a Jonathan, and they are super sweet, super good. I love them. I've been putting these in my oatmeal in the morning. I chop them up using this chopper right here and put them in with my cooked oat groats, actually, and cook it down. And the fiber in the apple is really good to feed the gut. I've got some food allergies that I'm kind of trying to, because of some gut issues, and I'm trying to heal that up with lots of good pectin. Pectin is in the skin, and then when you cook it, it breaks that down and makes it very healing to the gut. And I just put that in there with the oat groats, and it's so yummy. So apples have anti-cancer properties as well, and they help to lower cholesterol. They help to decrease risk of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. In one study, a 2005 study I was just reading about today, 38,000 women, I'm sure they weren't just studying apples on women and diabetes, but this study showed that women who ate 1 apple or more a day cut the risk of type 2 diabetes by 28%. That's pretty significant if you've got a family history of diabetes. Diabetes, by the way, isn't a sugar problem. It's not a sugar, it is a sugar problem, but the problem isn't in your body with sugar, it's with fats. So what happens with diabetes is intramyocellular lipid. The fat is in the cell, in your muscle cell, and the insulin can't do its job getting the sugar into the cell, okay? Because the muscle cells are plugged up with fats, kind of like gum in a keyhole. You can't get the key in there. Insulin is the key that goes into the cell that brings that sugar into the cell. And when it's plugged up, it doesn't work. So we got to get the fat out of the cell, low-fat diet, and very little saturated fat. And then that sugar will be able to do its job, because our body loves sugar. Fruit's so good for us. Super high in minerals and vitamins, and Jonathan, yep. Let's see, I think we want some garlic in this soup too, don't we?
Do we need to stir?
Oh, yes. I'll give that a stir. In fact, oh.
I'm going to take the muffins out. I'm going to go set it.
Yeah, we need to. I get too many things going here.
It's supposed to feel a little spongy.
Yeah. Was that 17 minutes? Or 20?
14, and then I've done an additional 3.
Oh, okay. I'll take a peek at them.
You want to just touch them real quick with your, so I did.
Are they brown? So they've been in there 17 minutes?
Yeah. You want me to go another?
They're probably good.
I don't want them to be more.
Yeah, that's true. Go another minute. You never know with muffins, cakes and things like that. Okay, to this, we're back at our spaghetti squash here. I'm bouncing back and forth here. We got a Teflon pan there, so we won't have to worry about burning. I'm going to go ahead and add my beans. Beans, greens, mushrooms, and seeds. Super, super powerful protein, calcium, anti-cancer combination, anti-disease combination. Beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the healthier you are. We want to get those beans in every day. People that get a cup of beans in twice a week have half the risk of colon cancer. Beans feed your gut. Beans lower cholesterol. Beans get rid of fats in the body. And they also get rid of compounds that we don't want, too much estrogen. And that's because of the fiber. Beans contain resistant starch. That resistant starch resists normal digestion in the small intestine, goes into the large intestine, and your gut bacteria turn that into butyrate, which feeds your gut. Makes you have a healthy gut. We want those beans, and that's why you have discomfort if you haven't eaten a lot of beans. You get discomfort eating beans because you haven't built up your microbiome, your bacteria. You want to get those beans in. And if you can't handle beans because they give you gas or whatever, have 1 bean a day for a week and then 2 beans a day. Get them in there any way you can. They're very important foods. They regulate blood sugar. They help you stay full and satiated. Like I said, they lower cholesterol and reduce your risk of heart disease. They increase fat burning and reduce fat storage after a meal. And again, a lot of it's because of that fiber and the resistant starch. You hear about phytates from the paleo people and the keto people. Phytates in beans, bad, bad, bad. No, phytates in beans are good. They're anti-cancer compounds, phytates are. People that eat beans on a regular basis have been shown to have a slimmer waist, have better success with long-term weight loss. I'm just chopping some more garlic here for our soup, or some garlic here for our soup. I'm doing 2 cloves for the soup. And we're going to blend this soup, so I don't need to chop this garlic up too much. By the way, as we chop the garlic and the onions, I don't think I mentioned this, you're breaking open the cell wall of that plant and you're bringing out those compounds and making them more and more bioavailable. And what's amazing is there's lots of different compounds in these foods, and when you do chop them up, you get those compounds working together synergistically after you've chopped them, which creates even more anti-disease compounds. We're going to go ahead and throw those in there with the garlic or with the onion. Oh my gosh, I got to stop leaving that spoon in there. Oh, we're gonna have a fire. I owe these guys a wood spoon. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add the apple. We're gonna cook this apple with the onion. Somebody yell at me if I leave the wood spoon hanging out of my pan. Okay, we're gonna need to add a little bit of water. I usually add just about a 1/4 cup of water to this. Just enough to get those, make sure it's not sticking. And I'm gonna turn that down just a hair and put the lid on. Do you wanna find a lid for this little pan? I thought I had one right here. And we're gonna let that cook for about 10 minutes and get that apple cooked down good. If it doesn't fit perfect, it's okay. Okay, now I'm done with that. Okay, so I've cooked this spaghetti squash ahead of time as well. Let's see, I think this is actually going to be done. So we're going to go ahead and put this on the back burner and maybe turn some heat on there just to make sure we keep it nice and hot. And I'm going to add, this is not on your recipe, but lately I have been adding vinegar to almost anything that's got greens in it. I add a little bit of vinegar because it increases your body's absorption of that, production of that nitric oxide that I talked about. Vinegar and green leafy vegetables. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, he tells you when you have your steamed greens, a little bit of balsamic vinegar, a little bit of apple vinegar. Adds a nice flavor as well. You don't want to add too much. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. That looks so stinking good, guys. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to take my spaghetti or my butternut squash here, and it's just how I cook it the same way. Just stick it in the oven and let it cook. The one thing about butternut squash is the bulb here, where the seed is, where the seeds are, often cooks quicker and much softer than the rest of the squash. Sometimes this will be really soft and juicy and you'll feel that and it's still a little bit hard. Sometimes if I don't want this to get so mushy, I'm blending this so I didn't care, but if I want to keep this more firm, I'll cut this off during cooking. Like I'll feel that it's soft and this is hard, I'll cut it off, pull it out, and then continue to cook that. This will dry out a little bit, but it's still good. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the seeds out of this. Butternut squash is one of my favorite squashes. Of course, all that orange color is your beta carotene and lots of other carotenes that decrease risk of cancer and all diseases. Are you guys familiar with curry squash or buttercup squash? Buttercup, I challenge you to venture out. You know, for years, butternut, spaghetti, I did a little bit of acorn. But the last couple of years, I've ventured out into my squashes. I go to Natural Grocer. They have a small pumpkin-looking squash that's called the curry squash. Oh my gosh, it's like dessert. I kid you not. And then the, what's the other one that I mentioned? Oh, buttercup is very sweet and good. There's not a lot of flesh in it, though. It weighs a lot, and the flesh is kind of thin, but it's still so good. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is just peel off this, and this is kind of messy to do with the butternut squash. Peel off the skin, but see how much easier? See how easy that peeling just comes off? You don't have to, you know, cut your fingers off to get to peel a squash, because it just comes right off when you cook it. And one thing that helps is after it's been when it comes out of the oven, is to put it in a pan like that with a lid and let it kind of sweat. And then the skin will come off even easier. I'm going to transfer that over here and use that over there. And then this part of it's super easy to come off. Just slice it right there. And hopefully it'll come off easy. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to get off. And this one is going to be, but not nearly as hard as cutting it when it's raw. Yeah, that part came off really easy. Plus, you're preserving a lot more of the flesh. Like I know when I have skinned a raw butternut squash, I'm taking off some of that good flesh from the skin. And usually a lot of the nutrients in foods are right under the skin. In fact, with apples, I didn't mention this, but the skin of the apple is where all the really great compounds are for cancer-fighting, the cancer-fighting compounds. People that eat the most apples have least oral, esophageal, breast, prostate, and colon cancers. That's apples. Sorry, I know I'm cutting a butternut squash. I'm just going to chop this up just a little bit. We're going to throw this in our blender. And I gotta get rid of those gloves. Messy, messy. You might want to do that with gloves. They get really, that squash gets really messy. I kind of like getting my hands in food. It's fun. It's like a kid when you play in the mud, you know. All right, let's check that. Check our apples. And they need to cook just a little bit more, I think. Nope. Has anybody tried a Japanese sweet potato? That's another thing you gotta venture out and go try a Japanese sweet potato. Natural Grocer sells them. They're quite pricey. They're about $2.69 a pound. But they're like those curry squash. They're like candy. And they look like this. They got purple skin and they're white on the inside. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull that skin off. They're really creamy, and it doesn't look very good, but they're super creamy, and they're really yummy with beets, shredded beets. I know that sounds really weird, but if you don't want to spend the money to get one of these, you can just get one of the white sweet potatoes, because that works really good in this as well. Or it should. I've never tried it, but it should. It's a sweeter sweet potato, but this has got a really creamy texture. I'm just cutting off the tip of that just because it's a little bit woody. Okay. I think our apples are good enough. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our blender. Make sure the lid's out of it. Jan, I'm going to have you, well, I guess I could. I want to make sure these apples, oh, those apples are good. They're good and tender. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and that handle's hot. I'm going to go ahead and transfer my onion and apple and garlic to the blender jar. That's done if you want to do that. And then we're going to add our seasonings. We're going to add our, let's see, we've got a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, nutmeg, and allspice, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which is going to give it just a little bit of a kick. You could leave it out if you wanted. And we're going to put in, I think your recipe sheet says 1/4 cup, 1/4 to 1/2 cup of cashews, depending on how rich and creamy you want it. We're going to go with the full 1/2 cup. This is just going to add some really nice fats. I have made this, I got a nut allergy, so I'm not doing nuts, but I have made this with rice, blended with 1/2 cup of brown rice, short grain brown rice. Worked really nicely. Cashews give it a nice flavor and add some extra fats that just make it, extra rich and creamy. But if you're really watching your fats for whatever reason, if you're trying to lose some weight or whatever, that might be something you'll want to leave out. But you're getting so little. I mean, you're only getting 1/2 cup. This makes a lot of soup, so you're only going to eat maybe a tablespoon of those nuts. So, which is a good thing. Okay, we want to add some water to this. I'm not going to add the full 2 cups just yet. It's better to add less water when you're blending nuts because they cream down a lot better with less moisture, less fluid. Now, if you don't have a strong blender like a Vitamix or a Blendtec, you may want to soak those cashews in some of that water before you blend, because that's going to soften the nuts and make them blend creamier. If you've got a strong blender, you won't need to do that. Oftentimes I'll soak things because I don't want the ingredients to get hot, but this is a hot soup, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, then I'm going to throw in my potato and squash. I want to be careful with that potato. I don't think a sweet potato would get real starchy and gooey like a regular potato. You don't want to blend a regular potato because it'll get really gooey. I think sweet potatoes would probably do a little bit better, but I want to be cautious and not blend it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right in there. And this is a half a pound of the sweet potato. In fact, I'm just going to cut that up a little bit just to make sure it gets blended good. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to use my hand since I'm gloved and just throw in that butternut squash. And I hope my blender will take it all. I might have to blend it first. I'm going to take those off for a second. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the water. And when you get it this full, you got to just kind of work with it just a little bit. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to put part of that in here. And put the rest of the squash in there. And we're putting about 6 cups of water total. And you can use broth if you'd like. I prefer to use water and then just add seasoning, a little extra salt or whatever, because packaged broths are kind of expensive. And I'd rather just add water and add a little bit of, extra salt or something. Or spices. Now, if you don't have a strong blender like this, you'll obviously need to do them in batches. You might need to do like 3 or even 4 batches. Because that's giving this thing a good workout. And I'm just going to add that to the pot. I'm just going to put some water in it and do that. And then I'm just going to add the rest of the water to this, or probably not the rest. I'm going to hold off on some of that water because you can add more water, you can't take away water. So I want to thin that down to where it's the perfect consistency. It will probably take 6 cups. And we are going to want the rest of that water in there, I think. Is there a whisk that's got like some silicone on it or something? I hate to use that whisk.
Yes.
Yeah, I probably better not use that metal whisk on that Teflon. Yeah. I think that's going to be about right. Perfect. All right, and then I am going to add a little bit of salt to this. I'm going to add a teaspoon, and I think I need a teaspoon under here. I'm using real salt. Yes.
Does that have iodine
It does not.
So then you have to supplement your diet.
You know, I haven't supplemented with iodine. Last time I had my blood work done, it seems like my iodine was fine. So I haven't worried about it, but it's something I think you got to keep an eye on. Okay, I'm going to use a teaspoon of salt. And that actually needs to be heated. And you can, of course, thin this down, you know, the way you like it, a little bit thinner. Leave some of the water out and make it thicker. I think that almost looks a little bit thick. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more water to that. Oh, wrong water.
Cold?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that
that one.
doesn't matter.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You're cooking it.
Yeah. Okay, I think that is about good. And that is good. Okay, you guys, I think we got our muffins and we got, oh, I'm not done. I got a salad dressing I gotta make. Let me grab that blender jar. I almost forgot. And finish the salad. We gotta put other stuff in the salad. So I've got a salad here. We're right about perfect timing too. Except I need my chopper. No, I don't need my chopper. You're gonna be my chopper.
Okay.
Okay, so what I've got here, in fact, I'll have you start just slicing this apple.
All right.
And I might be helping you here, but okay, so in my salad, I have got, and I actually added something that's not on your salad list because I had red bell pepper. They're a totally fall food. You know, the peppers, green bell peppers are unripe peppers. They're picked early, and we've got them all year round. Red peppers are more of a fall fruit, and they are actually a fruit because they have seeds. But so anyway, I like using red peppers this time of year, or colored peppers this time of year. Super, super high in vitamin C. Peppers are one of the highest foods in vitamin C. We're going into, you know, flu season, sick season. We need vitamin C to boost our immune system. So I like to eat lots of peppers. So I decided to add those. Other than that, I've got the spring mix from Costco, the tubs, the spring mix salad. I've been loving that, eating lots of that. And then I added some red cabbage. Red cabbage is one of your most highest nutrient, cheapest, most economical cruciferous vegetable, and we want to get cruciferous vegetables in every day. Back to cancer. Women that have cabbage on a regular basis, raw cabbage, even if you're predisposed to breast cancer, greatly cuts your risk, I think like in half if you're doing cabbage. So I've got some purple cabbage in there, then I grated some carrots, and then we're going to add some red onion to this.
How would you like this?
Just like cut again and then sliced thin.
So, okay.
And where's my other cutting board? I'm going to go ahead and,
Like this?
yeah, and actually like smaller, like
Oh, okay.
tiny
Yeah.
cutting, yeah.
Use, you know that smaller wooden one that I want?
Yes. And my knife? Oh, you're using, are you
okay.
using
I'll
that?
use another
Okay.
knife. I don't know when you use it.
I'm going to add some red onion to this, and we're just going to slice that. So we're getting some raw onion in here. By the way, I didn't talk about G-bombs. Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Those are, I mentioned Dr. Furman, Dr. Joel Furman. He's got an acronym for the most powerful anti-disease, anti-cancer foods. In fact, I've got a handout over there about breast cancer, and that's his, and they're the G-bombs. I think it's the orange one. And we're getting all those in tonight. Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms. In fact, they're all in there pretty much. And then we're getting some raw onion in. We're getting some seeds in from our sesame parmesan, which I didn't mention. I am using that. I'm gonna just let you guys put it on yourself. I already had it made up. It's just, you just put in your coffee grinder or your blender, if your blender can handle it. It's sesame seeds, and you want to get the brown sesame seeds. Brown sesame seeds have the hull on it, the outside hull. That's where 90% of the calcium is at in the seed. Sesame seeds have the highest calcium of all foods, higher than leafy greens. And we want to get that in with the brown sesame seeds. So I just grind that up in a little coffee grinder with the rest of the added ingredients, and it makes a really nice topping for pizza, anything you'd use Parmesan cheese on. And I'm just going to have it off to the side so you guys can taste that just right by itself if you want. Sometimes I'll put it in the mix, but that soup is boiling. Yeah, they are. They don't work very good. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to slice up just about a half cup of sliced red onion. And I'm just going to kind of toss that salad with my hands. And we're going to throw in that apple. I'm going to grab this pear. So, oh, you're fine. So I'm going to put in a red apple and a red pear, and this is going to add some nice red color. We've already got that pepper in there, but this is just going to add some nice red color, a little, and we're going to add a little sweetness to this salad as well. And this red, I like using the red because of the color, but it's not real ripe, so hopefully it'll be okay though. And I don't really have any nutrition information about pears other than they're a fruit. And kids that eat the most fruits have the least risk of adult cancers. And kids love fruit. I remember just begging my dad to buy fruit, you know, because I loved fruit. My grandma had an orchard, and we had apricots and peaches, and I would just go out there every day testing them to see if they were ripe yet. And then I would just eat way too much of it, as I still do today. I have a fig tree, and I go out there and can seriously make myself sick. But I have a sweet tooth, so. And we're just going to thinly chop this fruit up. We're doing an apple as well, as I mentioned. I don't know if you can see that. You can go, we're just mixing it in with the salad, so you can go smaller. Okay, so I'm going to do a salad dressing. I'm going to let Jan finish this pear, actually. I forgot about my salad dressing. And you can have your knife back.
Oh, great. Thank you. That'll help.
Okay, so our salad dressing is, where's my salad dressing? Oh, here it is. I was like, oh dear, have I forgot something today? Okay, what I've got soaking here is some dates, because we want some sugar, and we've got some balsamic vinegar, and I've got about a tablespoon of pecans in here. So we've got, if you look on your bottle of dressing that you buy at the grocery store, you're going to have some fats, you're going to have some sugars, and you're going to have some vinegar, like if you're getting a vinegary type dressing. So we got our whole food fats with pecans, our sugars with the dates, and then we've got our balsamic vinegar and some water, and they're soaking, so everything's going to blend up really nicely. Nice and quick without getting too hot. And then I'm going to throw in, let's see, we're going to do those pumpkin, let's see, I want mustard right here. About a teaspoon of mustard. Dijon mustard, by the way. No Grey Poupon. This is organic, something at Natural Grocer. Let's see, and then we're going to go, I think that's it. Is that it? Oh, garlic. Do I have a clove of garlic laying around somewhere?
I don't see one over here.
I may have used it. That's okay. We'll leave it out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you know what? I'm not using dates. I usually use dates in my salad dressing. I'm using raisins. I forgot. By the way, I have a YouTube channel. It's under my name, April Ashcroft, and I've got some videos on there. I've got one about how to make a sweet mustard vinaigrette, It's like a honey mustard, but it's with no honey. I'm using dates. I've got a burger, a bean burger on there. I've got, let's see, sweet potato brownies. I've got quite a few videos that I've done at my home, like little short ones, and then the ones from the community education class, my ICL classes, which I also do, they're on there as well. So if you miss a class and want to check those out, they're there. Okay, and there's our salad dressing. Super, super simple. I'm just going to put that in a little bowl and you guys can dish it out for your salads. I feel like I'm blocking myself here. Spatula. Oh, you're fine. It takes a while to chop those things. I should have had you use the chopper, but that wouldn't have chopped it small enough, I don't think. See, that's a nice, fairly thick dressing. I've been doing like a raisin vinegar dressing for my lunch, my noontime lunch. Noontime lunch. It's usually when lunch is, right? Anyway, loving it. It's just a super simple, just vinegar. In fact, just vinegar and dates or vinegar and raisins is really good. Just it's a sweet vinegar dressing. I love it. Super simple. Just a word about the Vitamix or an expensive, high-powered blender. I highly recommend saving your pennies, dollars actually, and investing in a good blender if you're going to be cooking more with whole foods. I've had this blender for probably about 18 years, and it's still just going as strong. I've had to replace the jars, but this is a major appliance in my kitchen. I use it more than any other appliance in my kitchen, and so it's worth every penny. Highly recommend them. I went through a few less expensive blenders just because I have it's hard to fork out $400 for a blender, right? Like really hard. I'm cheap. But I haven't had to buy another one. You know, you go through like at least a couple of washer and dryers in 18 years at least. Okay, I'm going to add this apple.
That's apple and pear.
What's that?
Apple and pear.
Oh, apple and pear. Wonderful. And then we're just going to take some forks and see if we can stir this all together without losing half of it off the side. And this dressing mixes really nicely with the fruit, the fruitiness of the fruit, sweetness of the fruit. A lot of salad here tonight. So, okay, I don't know how well I got that mixed, but make sure you get a little fruit with your salad. The best gift that you can give to yourself and to your family is a healthier you. So I encourage people to kick it up a notch. You know, decide what you want to do this week. Pick one thing you can do this week to make your diet a little bit better, to include more plants in your diet, more vegetables especially in your diet. You know, if you're having a cold cereal for breakfast, have some oatmeal instead or some whole wheat cereal. Have a green smoothie. If you're not having a salad every day, have a salad every day and make it the main dish of at least one meal every day. Like make this salad right here, but add some beans to it, add some whole grains to it, do a healthy salad dressing. Just do one thing every day that's going to just increase your plant foods. There's a doctor, his name is Will Balsamic or something like that. I don't know where he comes from, but he's got a funky last name. But anyway, he's a gastroenterologist, and he tells you he helps people heal their gut from autoimmune diseases and inflammatory issues and things. And he says to try to get at least 30 plant foods in a week. And I thought I was doing really good, and I went and I was counting them, and I'm just like barely there. I have a tendency to eat the same thing. Like I eat oatmeal, oat groats, apples, and berries like every day for breakfast. I have a salad every day for lunch. So I'm trying to like incorporate more different varieties. Like instead of having a Jonathan apple every day, have a Jonathan, Granny Smith, a Golden Delicious, a Fuji. Every single one of those plants counts as a different plant because every plant has a different microbiome, a different sort of combination of microorganisms, bacteria, good bacteria that feed your gut, kind of like your gut. Plants are just like your gut. They're all unique and have different species of bacteria. And every different food that you eat feeds your body, okay? And so we want to get 30 different plant foods in a week is what he says. And that's what I'm shooting for. I've finally gotten to where every week I get just about that. But I try to get a little bit more. I'm a little OCD about perfection with my diet, but whatever. So anyway, just shoot for that. Just try to include one thing each week and just do a little bit better all the time. And you'll feel better and be happier.